Now, authorities say he allegedly tried to steal with a group of other migrants more than $600 worth of merchandise. Authorities say the group removed some of the store merchandise when they were confronted by a lost.
So, this is not the first report of shoplifters raiding a Macy's in New York City. And although New York City's shoplifting problem exists because gang members of all backgrounds, not just asylum seekers, are never sent to jail for stealing, some New Yorkers are hopeful President Trump's deportation plans can get a few of these criminals off our streets. But sadly, Macy's is not the only business in town these gangs are targeting.
Surveillance video shows the danger unfolding and barbers and customers ducking for cover and running. One of the Queens barbers could be seen trying to hold two gunmen down.
Cops say the alleged thieves were all in the country illegally from South America. They used power tools to make this hole in the roof of a floral shop, then more tools and torches with flammable gases to power through the wall to Elegant Jewelers, which sits next door.
For the second day in a row, the NYPD has taken down illegal street vendors. Officers were seen confiscating merchandise, ranging from clothes, jewelry, and power tools. Some of the goods are reportedly stolen.
All of them were asked and told to get a tracking device, GPS device that goes on your ankle.
Only 3 showed up to get their monitors, and hours later they cut them off somewhere in New Jersey.
Highlighting a case that explains why issues such as the border and crime became front and center in the presidential campaign.
So criminals who've co-opted New York City's asylum crisis are learning that this city is a sanctuary, all right, for those who want to steal things and get away with it. But what nobody's talking about is even though President Trump's deportation effort, which is going to target criminals and gang members and other dangerous individuals, even though that could make a difference in our crime problems here, our crime problems are a mess of our own making because we don't punish people for anything anymore. And that's why gangs who've snuck into our country masquerading as asylum seekers fleeing poverty are doing so much damage here. Damage that's done on top of what's done by the unpunished criminal element that already exists here because of our no consequences justice system. A no consequences system that's turning seemingly average looking people faced with out of control living costs into petty crooks because taking something that's not yours makes it easier to pay rent, which is wrong. Nobody should be stealing anything. And it's certainly not a victimless crime because in the case of our gang members, stealing gives them endless merchandise they can force people to sell on street corners or out of the back of vans in middle-class neighborhoods, just down the street from a barbershop that was invaded by a Venezuelan gang settling a dispute. Which brings us to the real reason why President Trump's deportation plans, although thorough, may not be the one-size-fits-all cure for New York's crime problem. Sure, they'll help by removing dangerous criminals who aren't supposed to be here from our country, but plenty of dangerous criminals will get to stay here provided they're not on a federal watch list yet, or provided they've established legal residency, revealing that New York City's $4.4 billion shoplifting economy will continue growing just as it has ever since we decriminalized crime. However, some of these gangs, like the Venezuelan gang Tren de Aragua, specialize in human exploitation. And as you're about to see, shoplifting gives them a frighteningly effective tool they can use to make unlimited amounts of money exploiting vulnerable people, most of whom happen to be asylum seekers. So here we are, Macys, downtown Brooklyn, the site of a recent robbery attempt, which was thwarted by in-store security, who prevented a few $1,000s in goods from walking out the front door without being purchased. The robbery took place at around 9 p.m., and apparently the suspects are both teenagers. But the reason this type of theft is concerning isn't because of who's involved or where they're from, it's because of what the stolen goods are used for and how they hurt innocent people in a way most New Yorkers don't even realize.
The NYPD has taken down illegal street vendors. Officers were seen confiscating merchandise, ranging from clothes, jewelry, and power tools. Some of the goods are reportedly stolen. Yesterday, Mayor Adams.
So if you've ever wondered where stolen goods end up, well, they can end up on the internet, but increasingly they've been winding up on the sidewalks of middle-class neighborhoods in New York, being sold in like an open-air type of market situation. And according to the New York Post, Post, most of these goods are being sold by asylum seekers who've recently traveled to the United States. And although selling things on the side of the street without a license is illegal in New York City, the Post was also able to confirm that these power tools you see here spread out on blankets were not obtained in a legitimate manner, because apparently they still had the tags on them from Home Depot and the prices were like 70% less than what you'd pay for them in the store itself. But the Post also figured out the same thing that I saw when I went over to one part of town where this is happening, that the people who are doing this selling, they all kind of operate as a team. It's not like you have one person who just has a few items that they have lying around somewhere and they've decided to sell those to try and survive. No, that's not what's going on. It's organized. You've got lookouts who keep an eye out for law enforcement. You've got the people who do the actual selling, and then you've got the distributors who unload suitcases of this stolen merchandise to the people who then spread it out on blankets and have to stay there until it's all sold. And it's quite possible that many of the people who are out on the street, like a young woman in her 20s next to a blanket of tools from Home Depot, don't actually want to be doing that with their time. First of all, asylum seekers, they don't have to work to survive in New York. If they're in a shelter, they get meals. There is a continental snack bar of sorts that's always available. They don't have to pay rent. Medical bills are taken care of while they are in the city's care. So they don't have to be out on the street selling stuff that was stolen from a department store. Unless, of course, a very dangerous individual tells them they better do it or else.
Well over 1 million Venezuelans have been released into this country on parole. The ones that we've actually tied to TDA are the ones that have been apprehended for committing crimes. So there are many more out there. They're operating in almost half of the United States that we know of right now.
So this Tren de Aragua, these guys are very dangerous, and they're different than most gangs U.S. authorities have done battle with in the past, because their specialty is human exploitation. And recent reports in New York indicate that they're exploiting people by forcing them to join their gang and become foot soldiers who steal things from places like this, as well as recruiting people to do their bidding in a myriad of fashions. And the reason they're able to get away with this is because of the asylum crisis. It's a humanitarian crisis, and thousands of people a month still come to New York City who are gonna need a place to stay and are gonna check into our shelter system. But that's where these gang members are living, and we know it. Here's a photo of police raiding one of the large tent shelters where gang members have been known to reside, looking for contraband and illegal items. And this happened at the large Randall's Island tent shelter, which is apparently a home base for them of sorts. And you've also got gang members residing at the Roosevelt Hotel, which is the welcome center for every asylum seeker who comes to New York. And apparently what they do is they tell people, you better join us or else. In the case of young men, again, they tell them, look, you have to join our gang, you have to commit robberies, you have to commit assaults, you have to do what we say. And apparently these gangs are incredibly persuasive. If they approach you and tell you to sell stolen items on the street and you refuse, they threaten to mark you as an enemy of the gang, an outsider, which in a law and order environment wouldn't be much of a problem because you could tell the police and that person would be arrested. But sadly, that's not how things work inside of our shelters. Again, we are a sanctuary city, and that means police are not allowed inside those facilities. Oh no, the gang members are allowed inside because they live there, they're sneaking weapons inside, and this creates a situation where many asylum seekers are in danger where they live, and there's absolutely nothing that can be done about it because our laws mandate this perpetual danger in these shelters. And the fact that these gangs have been known to reside in the welcome center for asylum seekers means every new arrival can be spotted and sized up by the wrong people the moment their feet hit the ground in New York. And apparently they're also in league with many of the gangs and cartels operating along our southern border that help people get into the United States around an official point of entry. A lot of times the people they bring in can't afford their services, and once they get into the country, they're told that they'll have to work to pay off those debts. And they've got allies in these gangs that are located in New York to make sure that that happens. It's terrible. And many people who fled poverty and fled these criminals, they get here and they think, oh great, I'm in America, I'll be safe now. No, they won't, because the shelter that they're checking into is run by the same criminals that in some cases helped them get into the country.
People are still coming in. So looking at your screen right now, that is very recent video out of Eagle Pass, just outside of Shelby Park, where a group of nearly 200 had crossed into the United States. So what they're dealing with right now is Texas military.
So all of those people that you see headed towards the border, they're not doing it alone. They're not just walking in a straight line. They've got help from people who know the terrain, but who are also very dangerous criminals. And they're exploiting these people in many ways, even before they get into this country. These asylum seekers, they're going through untold amounts of suffering because there's a business opportunity here for these criminals to make money, offering people a corrupted version of the American dream. And you've got to wonder, this 17-year-old and this 18-year-old that recently stole from this Macy's, did they do it because their goal was to come to America and steal clothes from a department store? Or did they do it because someone told them they better do it and they better give that merchandise to somebody else that had plans for it? But now, critics of New York's soft-on-crime policies say that if a massive deportation effort targeting criminals does start in the near future, those asylum seekers will be better off, and local middle-class and immigrant communities here in New York will also be better off, because these gangs who are getting away with pretty much everything won't be able to any longer. So part of the reason President Trump did so well with working class voters this past election is because in neighborhoods similar to this one, the effects of crime are much more prominent than they are in a rich neighborhood that's got tons of police and tons of resources. Nobody living in Manhattan's West Village has a massive problem with street vendors or rampant gang activity. It only happens seemingly in the outer boroughs, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx. Also, middle-class neighborhoods, those tend to have much lower property values and available property like abandoned warehouses, old co-working facilities that are no longer being used. Those places have been scooped up by the city and turned into asylum shelters in many cases. But even though these are some of the most affordable places the city could use as a shelter with gang members operating inside of them, it was only a matter of time before those gang members started operating outside of them as well.
Surveillance video shows the danger unfolding and barbers and customers ducking for cover and running.
We tried to stop them.
47-year-old Rafael Abreu, one of the Queens barbers, could be seen trying to hold two gunmen down, but another one grabbed.
So this footage is from the moment gang members stormed a barbershop on a busy avenue outside of a residential neighborhood that looks exactly like this one, located in Queens, just around the corner from Roosevelt Avenue. And apparently they were after someone who was inside the barbershop. What a coincidence. Criminals are in charge of the streets, the sidewalks, and now they're taking over the stores themselves. And the guy who battled those gang members and disarmed them, he's a hero. He saved everybody who was in that store. But look at this place. It's got signage. It's right on the side of a busy avenue. If these gang members want to get revenge, how hard is it going to be for them to come back? It's really frightening. But this is a great example of why many people say we need a deportation effort that targets criminals. The middle-class neighborhood in question where this took place is already under a police occupation, a surge, so to speak, which is supposed to last 3 months to get rid of all of the crime that's going on there. There are hundreds of officers and a mobile command unit. Their presence is massive, but that still wasn't enough to stop gang members from going into a barbershop terrorizing people. And to be honest with you, even if the police make an arrest, what are they going to do? These criminals will probably get released by a sympathetic justice system that sees them as people who are victims or who need a second chance. If they even get caught, their faces were covered, they escaped, no arrests have been made, and if they do get arrested, locally here, they'll get an attorney, they'll get legal assistance, and they may evade justice. And this idea of a lawless environment that totally sets middle-class neighborhoods up for failure, it's not something that is unique to just New York City. This is a statewide problem and a countrywide problem in many cases.
These people are back on the street.
Cops say the alleged thieves were all in the country illegally from South America. Police say they used power tools to make this hole in the roof of a floral shop, then more tools and torches with flammable gases to power through the wall to Elegant Jewelers, which sits next door.
So here we have a report of gang members who committed a Mission Impossible style robbery, were in the country without permission, and were all released without bail and have escaped law enforcement. Their goal was to break into a bank of stores that were in a small building like this, which was only one story. What they did was they accessed the roof of the building, and then they ended up using power tools to cut a hole in the roof of one store, and then they used that entry point to break through that business into the neighboring one. And this wasn't like a group of people who were stealing to feed themselves. Oh no, these were sophisticated criminals. They had radio jamming devices that they activated while they were breaking into these businesses, which would would disable nearby police radios so that if someone did call 911 to radio in the break-in, they would have more time because local officers wouldn't get the call to respond. That's very dangerous. But as it turns out, these guys are members of a gang. They're not supposed to be here, and now they're out on the loose once again after being in custody.
But because their Class D felonies weren't bailable offenses,
all of them were asked and told to go down to get a device that's called a tracking device, GPS device that goes on your ankle.
Only 3 showed up to get their monitors, and hours later they cut them off somewhere in New Jersey.
Some of you in the comments right now are typing, well, this wouldn't have happened in Texas, and you know what? It probably wouldn't. But the fact that you've got areas of the country where lawlessness is the law makes this a country-wide problem, and we need a country-wide solution to it. And the reason that you've got people who are now saying that a deportation effort that targets these crooks is a good idea is because these lax justice laws that we have, they're the law. Yet they fail because they make assumptions about dangerous criminals that just are not true. These laws assume that somebody who steals is going to come back to a courthouse to be fitted with an ankle monitor, while totally neglecting the possibility that this person might feel more comfortable running from the law and remaining a fugitive and maybe going to another sanctuary city where nobody's going to find them. And the question now is, who could possibly be against the idea of getting rid of dangerous criminals and gang members who exploit vulnerable immigrants and asylum seekers? Who could possibly be against that? I guess we're going to find out in just a few short weeks when the next administration comes in and starts putting these plans into action. What do you think about that? Will deportations of criminals be a good thing for middle-income communities and immigrant communities in this country? Or is this just a mean-spirited anti-immigrant attack on America? Let me know. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next video.